Phase 2 is actually, you're gonna be putting the weight behind your head. Alex, I apologize for this in advance. What's going on, everybody? Sam Brown here at elitefts, once again, going over a piece of equipment that I do not think gets as much respect as it deserves. We're gonna be going over the back extension today. All right, Alex, jump right on. So the back extension, first off, it's not the best name because you're not really trying to extend at your back. The focus of the back extension should be to get more muscle development in your hamstrings and your glutes. That's at least how I program it in. If you want to, so just do a regular rep, don't think about it too much. If you notice here, he is extending through his lumbar spine. Right down here, so do a couple more reps. You'll see him come down and hyperextend, right? If you want to work your erectors, I guess you could do it this way, but at the end of the day, there's a much better way of performing this exercise. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that the pad height is correct. Luckily enough for us, we've already set it up. We want it just about at the height of your hips, so at the top of your hip bone. And if your aim is to get more glute and hamstring activation, we need to start at the bottom of the movement. So Alex, I'm gonna have you go all the way down. Relax your upper back, kind of like let it dangle. What we're gonna be focusing in on here is we're not going to be doing the movement from his lower back. That can potentially have negative impacts down the road if you're constantly flexing and extending at that lumbar spine. Instead, we're gonna have Alex think about creating a straight and neutral spine. Right there, good. And all the movement is gonna be coming from the hips and the glutes. So, Alex, what I want you to think about is go all the way down. From that position, I want you to think about just squeeze the glutes, bring yourself up just about right there. So you don't need to go all the way up, so show all the way up, because if you notice, so go down, we'll do that nice and slow, all the way down, squeeze the glutes all the way up. The end of that motion actually is coming from the middle of his back. That's not what we're looking for. So Alex, you can relax all the way at the bottom. What we really want to focus in on is just the glutes. Glutes, hamstrings, all right? So Alex, one more time, relax all the way. Squeeze the glutes right there. Going to full hip extension, which is about right here. That's as far as you need to go, because after that, you're going to start activating lower back, erectors, and that's not the name of the game. So you can stand up, you can relax here. That itself, if you can nail down that form, you're gonna notice immediately you're getting more bang for your buck on that exercise. But if that's too easy and you get to a point where you can start adding weight, there's a few ways that you can actually do that. First and foremost, very simple. Merely adding weight on the chest. So Alex will demo. So cross it. Holding weight nice and tight to your chest, keeping that same form, keeping that neutral spine, squeezing the glutes. That's as far up as you need to go. Perfect. A couple reps there. Excellent. And rest. So that's kind of phase 1 of adding resistance to the movement. Phase 2 is actually, you're going to be putting the weight behind your head. Alex, I apologize for this in advance. So this is going to go behind my head. Just behind your head. Okay? Perfect. Keeping that same form. Locking in. Squeezing the core tight. Squeeze the hips through. Boom. And as you notice, there's a little shaking here because he's using the same weight, but based on the position of that weight, it's much, much more difficult. Good, you can rest. Sucks way more, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, sucks a whole lot more. The final form of utilizing the same weight to make it even more difficult is extending that weight out in front of you, okay? So we're actually gonna go lighter because this is much more difficult. Here we go. So same idea. Yep, and now bring it out, down all the way. Squeeze, right there. Good. So, yeah, good, rest. So, as you can see here, you're not only working on that hip extension, Now you're working on getting a little bit more work in the stability of those shoulders and getting into that overhead position. Again, much more difficult. The final variation I'm going to show you is how you can increase the difficulty if you don't have any extra weight or bands to utilize for a back extension. So now we're going to do one leg.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, you can just drop that. Just body weight. Think of doing it the exact same way, but what we're going to focus in on is bring this leg out on top of the pad, focusing all that force, driving that foot into that plate, starting in that lower position. Yep, and just squeeze up. There you go. Same thing. Squeeze up all the way. Perfect. Let's get one more. All the way down. Squeeze, rest. A little bit more difficult?
Oh yeah.
And with that variation, you can load the weight the same way. You can either do bands, you can do plates, you can do whatever you want. But the idea is change where you hold that weight and what you do with that weight. And you'll notice that difficulty can increase or decrease. All right, so why do we want to bias that hamstring and glute as opposed to the lower back? Well, first and foremost, the back extension should be called the glute extension or the hip extension because that's that motion you're trying to train. The reason we want to do that is that the glutes and the hamstrings are going to be what you utilize to get a bigger squat, get a bigger deadlift, right? Look better naked. Whatever you want to do, the idea should be utilizing the muscles of hip extension to move on this machine. Why we don't want to utilize that lower back or make the motion from that lower back is because what we'll notice is if that lumbar spine starts to flex forward and extend backwards over the course of time, you may find out that you get low back injuries, some stiffness, some tightness, and it's just not great. There are better ways to train your erectors. There are better ways to train your lower back. But the idea on this machine is we want to focus in on the muscles utilized to extend the hips forward. If you're a power lifter, or anybody that wants to get stronger with a barbell, the idea of being able to fully extend and flex your hips is more important than merely just training your lower back. The reason I don't like to say like training the lower back is because if I turn Alex around right here, in this area here, there's obviously your erectors, right? There's all these deep spinal muscles that are your true back muscles. But in terms of any sort of musculature here that you can control, there's not much there, right? We don't have that neurological control to flex your erectors. How they work is when you flex forward, they turn on, right? They are designed for anti-movement and to resist movement. So if you're in this position here, you can kind of feel how those erectors kind of turn off. But if you go forward, they stiffen up because they are trying to hold your body in a position, right? So the reason is that we're not trying to train that specifically on this machine is because we don't want to really train our body to utilize the most amount of force production from this position, right? We want the motion to come from the hips and the hip extension and the muscles that control hip extension as the main movers, right? So if you're training your ability to, or if you're training utilizing just this up and back motion, this flexion extension motion, instead of using your hips, you're gonna jack yourself up on a deadlift, right? You're gonna get some sort of lumbo fucking problem, you know, lumbo problem. Edit. What you're gonna do is you're gonna find that you're putting more pressure into the structure of your lumbar spine as opposed to the function or the musculature that controls that hip extension, which is the glutes and like the hamstrings, okay? So the idea is we want to train using this machine the same way that we want to train utilizing a barbell. And the idea is the motion comes from the hips. The motion does not come from that lower back. The goal should be to stabilize the core, stabilize the torso, and allow the hips to be what drives that motion. So the reason is that we are going to be doing it the same way here is so we have that carryover when weights start to get heavy in a deadlift as well. So with that in mind, Alex, let's demo this. Let's show them how to do this. The idea should be we want the movement to come from the hips. So we want to make sure that this part of our body, our torso, is nice and tight. So stabilizing that core, keeping that rigid the whole time. As you notice, he comes down, 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 all the way down, all the way down, good. As he goes down a little farther, you're gonna notice he starts to round in his lower back. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking to make sure that his lower back is neutral, right? As you can see from this angle, he's not at full hip extension. What we wanna try to do is from here, maintaining this, so kind of relax that upper back a little bit, kind of round it over, good. As you can see, nice and neutral. All I want you to do, Alex, squeeze your glutes. Squeeze, boom. All the way down, keeping that good position, squeeze. Boom, perfect. All the way down, we'll do one more. As you can see, oh, don't let that round. Stay nice and tight right there. Squeeze the hips through, drive your junk into the pad. Boom, perfect, rest. That little cue is allowing Alex to get everything, all of that force into his hamstrings and his glutes and to really train hip extension. A lot of times when people have low back issues is because they aren't able to fully get into an extended hip position utilizing their glutes. What they'll do is they'll start extending through the back and then finish with the hips. So what we're doing here, again, training that pattern, practice like you're gonna play, right? So if we can perfect that pattern on a Elite FTS back extension machine, you're gonna find that you're gonna get more carryover into your deadlift. And that's what we're really looking to do. Hey guys, thanks for checking out this video on how to use a back extension. If you're looking for similar content, we shot a video on utilizing squat wedges to get more out of your squat and to feel your glutes more. Check that video out. As always, like, subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll see you in the next one.